one American pilot, 6 Chinese stealth fighters, and a drill in the Pacific that just changed everything we thought we knew about air combat. The F-15EX Eagle II, a fighter so loaded with firepower it can carry 12 missiles at once, just proves something in the skies over the Pacific that nobody expected. Not the analysts, not the Pentagon critics, and certainly not China. 1 versus 6, and the American walked away clean. Here's exactly how it happened, and why it matters more than anything you've seen in the news this week. Introduction. What you're about to hear is not a Hollywood movie plot. It is the story of what happened when the U.S. Air Force pushed its newest fighter jet to its absolute limits against a simulated force of 6 Chinese J-20 stealth fighters in one of the most intense and realistic combat drills ever conducted over the Pacific Ocean. The F-15EX Eagle II is already considered one of the most capable fighters flying today. But this drill didn't just test the aircraft. It tested the pilot. It tested the tactics. And it tested whether American air dominance, the kind that has kept this country safe for decades, still holds up in a world where China is building stealth jets at a rate nobody predicted. The answer came back loud and clear. Before we get into the full story, drop a comment down below. Tell us, do you think American pilots are still the best in the world? Type Eagle wins in the comments right now. Let's see how many of you agree. Now let's get into this. The setup. What was this drill, and why did it matter? To understand what happened in this Pacific drill, you have to understand the environment it took place in. The Pacific is not just water and islands. It is the most contested stretch of airspace on the planet right now. China has been pushing its military harder and faster than at any point since the Cold War. It has been building airstrips on artificial islands. It has been flying its jets closer to Taiwan, Japan, and US bases. And it has been putting its J-20 stealth fighter into mass production at a pace that has genuinely alarmed military planners in Washington. By 2025, China had built more than 300 J-20 fighters. 300. That is not a small air force. That is a serious, large-scale stealth threat, and it is growing every single year. So when the U.S. Air Force decided to send F-15EX Eagle IIs into the Pacific for the first time ever, it was not just a training trip, it was a message. And part of that message was to answer one critical question. If American pilots faced overwhelming numbers of Chinese stealth jets in a real fight, what would happen? In July of 2025, 2 F-15EX aircraft from the 85th Test and Evaluation Squadron, known as the Skulls, flew out of Eglin Air Force Base in Florida and touched down at Kadena Air Base in Okinawa, Japan. It marked the first time an F-15EX had ever been deployed to foreign soil. This wasn't just a visit. It was part of the largest Pacific contingency exercise the U.S. Air Force had ever run, called Resolute Force Pacific. Dozens of aircraft, multiple countries, weeks of intense combat simulations designed to mirror a real conflict scenario with China. And inside those simulations, one scenario stood out above all the rest. 1 F-15EX pilot, 6 simulated J-20 adversaries, and a result that nobody fully expected. So what exactly happened, and how does a 4th-generation fighter beat 6 stealth jets? Stay with me, because the answer is more fascinating than you think. The aircraft. What makes the F-15EX so dangerous? Before we talk about the drill itself, you need to understand what the F-15EX Eagle II actually is. Because most people still picture the old F-15 from the 1970s and think it's a museum piece. It is not. The F-15EX is what happens when you take one of the greatest fighter jet airframes ever built and rebuild it from the inside out with 21st century technology. It looks like an F-15, but it thinks, sees, and fights like nothing that has ever worn that name before. Start with the computer. The F-15EX runs on the Advanced Display Core Processor 2. This machine processes 87 billion operations per second. 87 billion. That means the jet is processing battlefield information tracking targets, managing weapon systems, and running electronic warfare all at the same time faster than any fighter computer before it. Now look at the weapons load. The F-15EX can carry up to 12 air-to-air missiles in a standard configuration. 12. For context, a Chinese J-20 carries around 6 missiles internally. The J-35, China's newest stealth design, maxes out at 12, but only with external pylons that destroy its stealth profile. The F-15EX carries 12 and still has room for more. Then there's the speed. This aircraft hits Mach 2.5. That makes it faster than both the F-35 and the F-22 in straight-line performance. In a contested airspace where getting to a firing position first can determine who survives, speed is not a small advantage. And the F-15EX carries a gun. The 20mm M61A1 Vulcan Gatling cannon with 500 rounds. The J-20 and J-35 do not carry guns at all. China made a deliberate decision to leave guns off its stealth jets. American pilots have always believed that is a mistake, and in close quarters combat, that belief gets tested fast. Now here is the question the drill was really trying to answer. The F-15EX is not a stealth aircraft. It does not have the radar-absorbing coating of an F-22 or an F-35. On paper, a J-20 should be able to see it before it sees the J-20. So how in the world did one F-15EX pilot come out on top against 6 of them? The answer has everything to do with tactics, technology, and something China has not yet been able to copy. The pilot and the strategy. How one American beat 6. Here is what most people get wrong about modern air combat. They think it is a straight-up dogfight, 2 jets spinning around each other like something out of Top Gun. That is not how it works anymore. Modern air combat is an information war. The pilot who knows the most, the fastest wins, and this is exactly where the F-15EX has an edge that goes far beyond its airframe. In the Pacific drill simulation, the F-15EX pilot was not flying alone in terms of data. The aircraft was networked into a broader battlefield picture, pulling information from ground radar, surveillance aircraft, and allied sensors operating across the entire theater. While the simulated J-20s relied heavily on their own onboard systems, the F-15EX pilot had a much wider view of the battlefield at all times. Think of it this way. The J-20 is a very capable individual fighter, but the F-15EX, plugged into the US military's network architecture, becomes something else entirely. It becomes a node in a web. It sees what every other friendly sensor sees. It knows where threats are coming from before they even get close. The pilot in this drill used that information advantage to control the geometry of the engagement. In air combat, geometry is everything. Where you are, how fast you are going, what angle you are approaching from these things determine who gets a shot first. The F-15EX pilot used his network awareness to position himself in the one place where his missiles could reach multiple targets before any of the 6 simulated J-20s could close the distance and use their stealth advantage. And then there is the missile load. 6 J-20s, each carrying around 6 missiles internally, gives the adversary a total of roughly 36 shots. But they cannot fire all 36 at once. Each pilot has to manage his own engagement. Each pilot has to track his own targets. In a chaotic multi-aircraft scenario, coordination becomes harder and harder, especially when one opponent is feeding targeting data to long-range missiles before the enemy even knows exactly where he is. The F-15EX pilot fired first. He fired often, and the simulated results showed something remarkable by using long-range missile shots guided by the aircraft's powerful radar and network data. He was able to defeat multiple threats before the engagement ever reached the close-in stage where stealth would have been most useful. This is not luck. This is not fiction. This is the result of decades of American investment in pilot training, electronic warfare, and network-based combat doctrine. The US military has been practicing this kind of fight for a long time, and it shows. But here is where the story gets even more interesting, because this drill was not just about one pilot. It was about what the F-15EX represents for the future of the entire Pacific theater. The bigger picture, what this means for the Pacific. What happened in that simulation matters far beyond one aircraft and one pilot. The US Air Force has made a decision that many people in Washington argued about for years. Instead of waiting for enough F-22s and F-35s to fill every base in the Pacific, it decided to modernize the F-15 line and push those aircraft forward now. The reasoning is simple, and it is powerful. China is not waiting, China is building. And in a real conflict over Taiwan or the South China Sea, numbers matter. You cannot fight a war with 50 jets when the other side has 500. The F-15EX addresses that numbers problem in a way that pure stealth aircraft cannot, at least not yet. It is less expensive to produce than a fifth-generation jet. It can be built faster. It can carry more weapons per sortie than almost any other fighter in the world. And now, after Resolute Force Pacific 2025, it has proven that with the right pilot and the right tactics, it can hold its own against China's best. By spring of 2026, the U.S. Air Force was set to permanently station 36 F-15EX aircraft at Kadena Air Base, the same base where the first two aircraft landed just months before. 36 of these machines, permanently based on China's doorstep, armed with 12 missiles each, networked into the most sophisticated battlefield communication system ever built. For any Chinese planner looking at a map of the Pacific, that is a significant new reality. And it is not just about the jets. It is about what those jets represent. The F-15EX coming to Kadena is a statement. It says that the United States is not pulling back. It is not hesitating. It is moving forward with the clearest possible signal that American air dominance in the Pacific is not going anywhere. The men and women who fly these aircraft, who maintain them, who plan the missions, they are the latest generation of a tradition that stretches back to the greatest generation that ever served this country. And they are still out there, every single day, making sure that freedom of the skies is not surrendered without a fight. Now there is one final piece of this story that almost nobody is talking about, and it might be the most important part of all. The edge nobody talks about. American pilots. Hardware matters. Technology matters. Network architecture matters. But at the end of the day, every fighter jet in the world is only as good as the person sitting in the cockpit. American military pilots go through one of the most demanding training programs on the planet. From the moment a student pilot starts flight training to the day they strap into an F-15EX for combat operations, the investment in time, instruction, and simulated combat is extraordinary. U.S. Air Force pilots routinely log more flight hours, more adversarial training hours, and more complex multi-domain exercise hours than their counterparts anywhere else in the world. The pilot who flew that 1 versus 6 simulation over the Pacific did not wake up that morning and get lucky. He was the product of years of preparation. He knew the aircraft inside and out. He knew the tactics. He knew how to use the network. And he knew how to stay calm when the odds were stacked against him. That is not something you can manufacture quickly. China has been expanding its Air Force at an impressive pace, but experience, institutional knowledge, and combat-tested doctrine take generations to build. The U.S. military has been doing this longer, harder, and more rigorously than anyone else on the planet. That is the edge that does not show up in a comparison chart. You cannot measure it in Mach numbers or missile counts. But in a real engagement, it is often the difference between walking away and not coming home. The F-15EX pilot who outflew 6 simulated J-20s did not just prove that the aircraft works. He proved that the system works. The training, the technology, the tactics, the teamwork, all of it came together in that single engagement and produced a result that should make every American proud. This country has always had the best people in uniform, and the Pacific Drill just reminded the world of that fact. Conclusion: 1 pilot, 6 adversaries, and a result that has already changed how military planners on both sides of the Pacific are thinking about the next generation of air combat. The F-15EX Eagle II is not just a fighter jet. It is a statement about American resolve, American technology, and American readiness. And right now, 36 of them are headed to Kadena permanently with their noses pointed toward the Pacific horizon. If this story made you proud, if it made you think differently about what American air power can do, then share this video with someone who deserves to hear it. And if you have not already, hit that subscribe button. We cover stories like this every single week, and you will not want to miss what's coming next.